If ideas are the architecture of experience, then attention is the energy that animates them. An idea without attention is inert and just a dormant possibility. Attention is what gives it weight, continuity, and a perceived reality. This is why belief alone is not what shapes experience. Belief alone becomes operative when attention repeatedly turns to it. Attention is what stabilizes perception into something that feels solid and unquestionable. Where attention rests, reality crystallizes. Where attention withdraws, structures dissolve. This is not metaphorical, it is literal. Attention is the mechanism by which awareness selects which ideas will be experienced as real. This is also why change is often resisted, even when suffering is intense. The mind does not resist change because it prefers pain. It resists change because attention has become habituated to a particular configuration of ideas. Familiarity masquerades as safety. Even harmful identities feel stable compared to the unknown. To shift perception requires withdrawing attention from entrenched ideas, which temporarily destabilizes the sense of self. This destabilization is often interpreted as danger, loss, or confusion, but it is actually a reorganization of coherence. The system is recalibrating. Awareness is loosening its grip on one framework before another has fully formed. Fear plays a central role in this process. Not because fear is an enemy, but because fear narrows attention dramatically. Under fear, perception collapses into survival mode. Attention locks onto threat, identity contracts, and becomes rigid. This is useful biologically, but existentially limiting. Chronic fear creates a narrow perceptual tunnel in which only certain interpretations are allowed. Entire realities can be hidden simply because attention never goes there. What people often call oppression, fate, or bad luck is frequently the long-term effect of attention constrained by fear-based ideas. Again, this is not moral or spiritual judgment. It is functional mechanics. The unconscious is not a hidden place beneath the mind. It is simply a collection of ideas operating without conscious attention. Anything not directly examined becomes unconscious by default. These ideas still shape perception, still guide emotional response, still influence behavior, but they do so automatically. The more rigid an idea, the more invisible it becomes. The mind stops questioning what feels obvious. This is how deeply held assumptions operate. Ideas about worth, reality, limitation, and possibility function beneath awareness while presenting themselves as just how things are. Memory reinforces this structure. Memory is not a neutral archive of past events. It is a present reconstruction shaped by current ideas. Every time a memory is recalled, it is reinterpreted, reorganized, and reinforced through the lens of identity. Memory gives continuity to self by repeating certain narratives and excluding others. Without memory, identity would dissolve moment to moment. But memory is selective. It highlights what supports the current idea of self and downplays what contradicts it. This creates the illusion of a stable personal history moving through time, when in fact, identity is being recreated continuously in the present. Projection is the outward expression of this mechanism. What is unexamined internally is perceived externally. Ideas not recognized as ideas appear as qualities of the world, other people, or circumstances. Judgment, attraction, aversion, and expectation are all forms of projection. The world appears meaningful, threatening, loving, hostile, or indifferent according to the ideas through which it is perceived. This does not mean that the world is imaginary. It means its meaning is not intrinsic. Meaning is assigned through perception. Two beings can inhabit the same environment and experience entirely different realities because they are organizing awareness through different ideas. Non-human intelligences, according to Yazzie, are not fundamentally different in this respect. What distinguishes them is not freedom from ideas, but flexibility in how ideas are used. Advanced consciousness understand that identity as a tool rather than a truth. They adopt perspectives deliberately, enter forms knowingly, and disengage without trauma when a framework has served its purpose. Humans, by contrast, tend to fuse identity with survival, emotion, and meaning, creating deep attachment to particular configurations of perception. This attachment is not a failure. It is the part of the human experiential bandwidth. But it does explain why human suffering often feels existential rather than situational. Death itself must be understood within this framework. Death is not the annihilation of awareness. It is the dissolution of a particular configuration of ideas. The body releases its regulatory function, sensory input ceases, and the identity framework tied to that interface collapses. Awareness does not disappear. Attention simply withdraws from that focal structure. What follows is not punishment or reward, but reorganization. The continuity of experience depends on how tightly attention is bound to a specific identity. Strong attachment produces continuity of narrative. Looser identification allows for more fluid transition. This is not doctrine, it is mechanics. Reincarnation, when stripped of mythology, is simply attention re-engaging with form through a new set of constraints. The soul does not move from body to body like a traveler changing clothes. Rather, source refocuses awareness through another localized perspective. Memory may or may not carry through, depending on the function of the next experience. Forgetting is not a flaw. It is necessary for immersion. Without forgetting, experience would lose immediacy and consequence. Meaning requires partial amnesia. Total recall would collapse contrast. Free will exists, but not in the way it's commonly imagined. Choice does not occur at the level of individual thoughts or circumstances. It occurs at the level of attention. What you attend to determines which ideas are reinforced, which ideas stabilize, and which realities unfold. You do not choose every event, but you participate continuously in how events are interpreted, integrated, and extended. This is why a small shift in attention can produce profound changes over time. Reality reorganizes around what is consistently emphasized. This also clarifies why force rarely produces genuine transformation. Coercion may alter behavior, but it does not shift attention voluntarily. Only recognition does that. When an idea is seen clearly as an idea, its grip loosens. It may still function, but it no longer dominates. This is the essence of insight. Insight is not new information, it is the reorientation of attention. It is seeing what was previously assumed. Liberation is not escape from experience, but intimacy with how experience is constructed. Spiritual systems often fail when they replace one rigid idea set with another. Higher selves, missions, ascension timelines, hierarchies of consciousness. These can all become prisons if attention clings to them as identities rather than tools. The content of the idea is irrelevant. What matters is whether attention is free or compulsive. Any framework that demands unquestioned allegiance limits perception, regardless of how elevated it appears. Truth is not threatened by examination. Only fragile identities are. Integration, therefore, is not about rejecting the world, the body, or identity. It's about transparency. Ideas become transparent when they are seen as structures rather than truths. Identity becomes functional rather than absolute. Emotion becomes information rather than definition. The human experience does not disappear. It becomes lighter, more fluid, more responsive. Life continues, but it is no longer carried as a burden. At the deepest level, there is nothing to achieve. Awareness is already whole. The sense of seeking arises from ideas that suggest something is missing. When those ideas relax, seeking relaxes with them. What remains is not emptiness, but presence, unfiltered, immediate, and sufficient. Experience unfolds without the need to justify itself. Meaning arises naturally, not as a mandate, but as resonance. And so the paradox resolves. Limitation is not a mistake, and transcendence is not an escape. Limitation is the canvas. Ideas are the brushstrokes. Attention is the movement of the hand. Awareness is the field in which the painting appears. To live consciously is not to step outside the painting, but to know that you are both the image and the space that allows it to exist. I hope you enjoyed this message. I hope you learned something. Follow me on Patreon if you want to get, exclusive or early access to my videos. I usually put them on Patreon 1 to 5 days before I post them on YouTube. You can find my Patreon at Astral Irma. Okay, thank you for watching. Have a wonderful day.